question is that the new clause be read a second time. Rory Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Well, I'm hoping to speak to new clause 2 and new clause 3. As the Right Honourable Member has just pointed out, the Secretary of State has asked me to lead a review into these issues. I'd like to pay huge tribute, particularly to the member for Merioneth for the work that he's done, and to the member for Barnsley Central also for the work that he's done on this. There's been very, very good cross-party focus on this over the last couple of years. I have a huge amount to learn. As the Right Honourable Members...
Thank you. Is my honourable friend aware that the Northern Ireland Select Committee went to Washington very recently during the course of the summer and indeed saw firsthand some of the stuff which was actually being talked about? And would he be willing to take evidence from those people who were actually on that trip to make sure that that could also be included as well?
I'd be delighted to do that, and indeed the interventions are a reminder just how much expertise there is in the House. I can see on the benches opposite an enormous amount of expertise. My right honourable friend has, and my honourable friend has a great deal of expertise in this, and indeed many other people here in the chamber. We clearly need to focus on this for three reasons. We need to focus firstly because we have a huge obligation towards the individuals in the criminal justice system as a whole, but specifically to individuals who've served in the armed forces, and thirdly because we have an obligation to society as a whole. This is an issue where the United States experience suggests there is something we can do. It's unusual in a situation like this to actually find that we have concrete levers, things that we might be able to do in order to improve our relationship to reoffending. The expertise that exists with, for example, the Howard League for Penal Reform, the expertise that exists with combat stress, the expertise that exists with the Royal British Legion, the work that's been done by all the Forces charities, and indeed there are 29 different Forces charities currently working on this issue. The deep expertise in our universities. King's College London has done an enormous amount of work on some of the trauma elements of this. I've been contacted already in the last 24 hours by I think 7 different doctoral students doing doctoral theses on these issues. So I'm certainly not hoping to reinvent the wheel, but what I am hoping to do is to learn an enormous amount from members opposite to try to make this as much of a cross-party enterprise as possible, to bring in the expertise that's here. Please, by all means, go.
I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way, and I look forward to the results of the work he's undertaking, because I know it'll be undertaken with a great deal of care and intelligence. Would he accept that we're talking a lot about trauma and experience on the front line being one of the key issues here, but surely the institutionalisation of young men particularly does impact on how they behave when they come out, and that also has to be part of his review.
Thank you. Well, that's a very, very important intervention. Essentially, we need to be looking firstly at the base data. We need to understand what exactly is happening. As honourable members have pointed out, we don't yet have enough data on this. Secondly, we need to look at the causes, why there is an incidence of offending and reoffending from people who've formerly been in the armed forces. And thirdly, we need to look at our response. In doing this, we need to make absolutely sure that we're not stigmatising. To make absolutely clear that what we're not trying to do here is to somehow portray people who've been in the armed forces as being more likely to offend. In fact, a lot of the data suggests they may be less likely to offend than other people from similar socioeconomic backgrounds, so we need to get that clear. This is important in terms of recruitment, it's important in terms of the employability of people leaving the armed forces. But in terms of that specific issue on causes, clearly most of the research, my very preliminary readings, suggests that the honourable member is absolutely right, that there are different elements there. One of them may be experiences before people join the military. People joining the infantry, for example, tend comparatively to come from disadvantaged socioeconomic backgrounds. Secondly, experiences within the military, and this is to do, of course, possibly with elements of combat stress. And finally, the issue that you've raised, which is the question of the honourable members raised, which is the question of what happens when individuals leave the military, when they go from what may be for many people a very, very fulfilling institutional framework where people feel a strong amount of teamwork, of esprit de corps, and suddenly find themselves back in an environment where perhaps less support exists. That said, people coming out of the armed forces do already benefit enormously from the forces charities. and even from individual regimental associations. So we shouldn't underestimate the amount of support that exists, shouldn't try to reinvent the wheel, and give way for final time.
Well, my honourable friend also recognised as well, though, that in the United States of America, all the veterans, when they leave the military, they are given a mobile phone, and they actually receive then a couple of telephone calls during the course of the 6 months to a year afterwards as well, and that means that there is permanent contact also which takes place too.
I think my honourable friend's point is a good point on which to conclude. To conclude by saying that one of the reasons why this is hopefully a productive issue, I can see an honourable member intervening on me, so I will take that intervention.
I'm very grateful indeed to the honourable member for taking an intervention from a member who does represent a constituency in Northern Ireland, and I know that in fact the honourable member will be very sensitive indeed to the role of the British Army in Northern Ireland, which has in the past, for some sections of the community, been a very divisive role. Could I just urge the honourable member, when he's doing his research in Northern Ireland, to just bear in mind that there are members of, former members of the Royal Irish Regiment and also the Ulster Defence Regiment, who are very, very reluctant to raise their profile because, of course, they are anxious not to be targeted by dissident Republicans. So I'd be very keen to meet with him when he comes to Northern Ireland to do his research and to be as helpful as as I possibly can. And I'm sure I'm speaking for all of those who normally sit on this bench as well.
Thank the honourable member very, very much for that comment, and definitely I would love to take up that offer. So to conclude finally on the penultimate intervention, this question about mobile phones provided is simply an example of a very, very important point which I think everybody has raised so far in this debate, which is this. What we do know about veterans who offend and reoffend is that the military provides a very powerful possible support network. Unlike other sectors of society, we have there an instrument or a lever which could be incredibly helpful and supportive in backing people in their recovery process. So trying to make sure that we get the very best out of the institutions that already exist is going to be the key to this. We have an obligation to the individuals who offend and reoffend, we have a particular obligation towards the military, and we have an obligation to society as a whole. Thank you very much.
Can I also add my congratulations to the Honourable Member for Barnsley, but particularly